Hello, welcome to the Black Ponder. I'm Neil Trotter. Today, we're going to be talking about kindness. We're going to be looking at kindness on a philosophical level. And we're going to do that via this little book called Congratulations, By the Way, by George Saunders. Now, this book is actually a speech. It's a graduation speech by his author named George Saunders. He wrote several other books. It's a really short speech. I would assume it's probably like 5 to 7 minutes, maybe even less, 4 to 6 minutes, something like that. So it's a little tiny book, but in this little tiny book, there's a lot of useful information, and there's a touch of philosophy in here. So the speech is about kindness, and why should you be kind? You know, in philosophy, there's a common theme about morality, and does morality really exist? And some people associate that with the meaning of kindness and why really should you be kind. Some people say you should be kind to be good because it's the right thing to do, right? But what really is the right thing to do, and what really is the definition of kindness, and why should you really be kind? Does it really result in anything beneficial towards you? There's some philosophies out there that talk about selfishness as a good thing. Sometimes it's beneficial to be unkind to other people, right? There's that famous quote, right? Nice guys finish last, right? There's a quote there. So this is a very big issue. Like, why should you really be kind? And I like this little book because it gives you a different perspective on that reason. George Saunders talks about success. Like, what really is success? And how do we gauge how successful we are, right? Listen to this quote. Success is like a mountain that keeps growing ahead of you as you hike it. Just a little small quote, but I think that's a very powerful little excerpt there. When you base success off of achievement or accomplishment, you're never really gonna be ultimately happy, right? Because there's always something you're gonna want to achieve after you've achieved what you set out to achieve the first time, or you're never really going to achieve what you set out to achieve. You follow me? No, you don't. I didn't word that very well. Let me give you a quote that words it even better. I can look back and see that I've spent much of my life in a cloud of things that have tended to push being kind to the periphery. Things like anxiety, fear, insecurity, ambition. The mistaken belief that enough accomplishment will rid me of all that anxiety, fear, insecurity, and ambition. The belief that if I can only accrue enough accomplishment, money, fame, my neurosis will disappear. I've been in this fog, certainly since at least my own graduation day. Over the years, I've felt kindness, sure, but first let me finish this semester, this degree, this book. Let me succeed at this job and afford this house and raise these kids. And then finally, when all this is accomplished, I'll get started on the kindness. Except, it never all gets accomplished. It's a cycle that can go on, well, forever. And isn't that true? Yeah, I just think back at my own life. And, when I've tried to accomplish things, and it just keeps growing, right? College life, for instance. I went to community college, got an associate degree. Okay, but let's go move on to a bachelor's degree. Got that? All right, let's do the master's degree. Okay, that's going on. Let's continue our education by going to all these extracurricular events that I had to go to sometimes just to keep my education up to date. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, of course. You do want to constantly be improving yourself. But at the same time, it is a never-ending cycle. It just doesn't stop. Same thing with, just another example, having kids. You want to raise a family, you want to have kids. I don't know much about that. I don't have children, but, I know a lot of people that do, right? And, relatives that do as well. You want to meet somebody special, get married, have kids. All right, now you want them to turn out to be a certain way. They never really turned out exactly the way you want them to turn out. That's okay because they turn out to be good people anyway, but you're always watching out for them as they grow up. You're concerned as they're little kids, teenagers, adults. Then they have grandchildren. Now you're all worried about the grandchildren. It's this never-ending cycle. You want to have the nice family life, but ultimately, what is this end all to the family life? There is no end all. It just keeps going and going, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But like George Saunders says, it's a mountain that just keeps getting higher and higher and higher, and there's no real end to it. So if you base success solely on your accomplishments, your achievements, how much money you've made, how much you've acquired, your offspring, such and such and such, you're never really gonna be truly happy because it never ends, right? So how do you really gauge success? What's a good way to gauge success? Well, listen to this quote. Who in your life do you remember most fondly, with the most undeniable feelings of warmth? Those who are kindest to you, I bet. I think that's true. Think about the people that you like the most in your life. Just think about all those people who you really, truly have a fondness toward. Like they're like your favorite people. Those people are likely the people who were most kind to you, right? Who showed you compassion, who you like to be around because they're just good and nice to you and they care about you. And I think that's a good way to base success off of. Success isn't really about how much you've achieved, really. Success really is how kind you are toward people. Because when you really think about it, when you're kind to somebody, you're really achieving a lot more than just focusing on your acquisitions, right? Because like that quote is saying, when you're kind to somebody, you influence somebody. And you influence somebody in a positive way. That person starts to hold you as one of their favorite people. And when you really think about it, that's a great accomplishment to have. Because it's something that matters. It means something for somebody to like you because they think you care about them. I'm a small business owner, right? And part of my business, what I do is that I organize, coordinate, and run festivals or conventions, carnivals, where people can just come and have fun and enjoy themselves. And I made a lot of money off some of them, and I've lost a lot of money off others, right? It's up and down, that's just how business is, right? I'll never forget though the time when I was first doing this. There was a kid there and they were having a blast at one of the events that my business threw. And the kid walked up to me and she said, "Wow, this is the greatest day of my life." And honestly, that meant more to me than any type of amount of money that I made or any type of business status that I was getting from hosting this event. That to me, that meant something. To be responsible for creating the greatest day of somebody's life, that to me, there's a lot of meaning in that. That really, to be honest, there's really nothing in my mind better than that, right? To be responsible for creating the greatest day of somebody's life. That's crazy. Now, granted, this is a teenager, right? 14 years old about. So, her best days are still ahead of her, right? She's gonna have better days than that day at the festival, right? But still, that day is going to be a day she's going to remember for a long time. And who knows, that might influence her to do something positive. That day might have had a positive impact that could have shifted her life for the better, all because she had a great time at our event. And with the staff that was running the event was kind and nice to her. Now the author goes into some of the things that's happened in his life. But listen to this. After he's talking about several experiences, he says this: "What I regret most in my life are failures of kindness. Those moments when another human being was there in front of me, suffering, and I responded sensibly, reservedly, mildly." And I agree too. I agree too. I think those are the things that I regret the most. When I'm just, I see somebody in need of a helping hand, and I just kind of not really do anything when I could have did something. Because that was an opportunity for me to change somebody's life, really, or make somebody better. There's meaning associated to that, really. Like I said, I've done business moves where I've lost a lot of money. You could consider those failures or business failures, but it was good for me to experience those failures because I learned a lot about business. I became ultimately, after going through those business failures, those financial disasters, I came out a better businessman, right? A better person. I was more business savvy. So I don't really regret those things, but I do regret those failures of kindness. So why aren't we kind? Well, this is what the author thinks. Each of us is born with a series of built-in confusions that are probably somehow Darwinian. They are: 1, we're essential to the universe. That is, our personal story is the main and most interesting story, the only story really. 2, we're separate from the universe. There's us, and then out there, all that other junk, dogs and swing sets in the state of Nebraska and low-hanging clouds, other people. And 3, we're permanent. Death is real. Okay, sure. For you, but not for me. Basically, we're self-centered, right? All of us start out this way. And it's true, and we have to learn to realize that we're not the center of the universe, right? Either our parents teach us or we just learn that through experience, right? As little kids up to adulthood. Some people don't figure that out. A lot of people do. I think that's pretty accurate explanation as to why we fail to act kindly when the opportunity arises. But according to the author, that self-centeredness doesn't last. And I agree. Listen to this quote. One thing in our favor, some of this becoming kinder happens naturally with age. It might be a simple matter of attrition. As we get older, we come to see how useless it is to be selfish, how illogical really. We come to love certain other people and are thereby counter-instructed in our own centrality. We get our butts kicked by real life and people come to our defense and help us, and we learn that we're not separate and don't want to be. We see people near and dear to us dropping away and are gradually convinced that maybe we too will drop away someday, a long time from now. Most people as they age become less selfish and more loving. I think this is true, and I think it's true too. As you get older and as you experience more, you start to realize that you as an individual matters less than the relationships that you have with other people, right? That matters more. And why does that matter more? Because our relationships with other people are really where true meaning lies. That's really how we ultimately matter as individuals, is not from our own individual accomplishments, but how our accomplishments influence other people. If we're making a lot of money, if we're getting a lot of property, if we're becoming famous, and this, that, and the other thing. But ultimately, the end result of all that is you're hurting people, then really what are you ultimately accomplishing? If I organized a festival and a lot of people came, so I made a lot of money, but nobody really enjoyed the festival and nobody really got anything out of it, if people just came there and felt like it was a waste of their time. Sure, maybe I got a lot of money from the attendance, but what really did I accomplish? Ultimately, I just made a lot of people unhappy, really. I got a lot of money, but there's really no meaning behind that money. It's just, I just made a lot of people unhappy. Conversely though, if you show compassion or kindness to somebody, you have the potential to influence that person in a very positive way, right? That you could change somebody's life by being kind to somebody. That person in turn has the potential to be influenced by your kindness and in turn be kind to somebody else. And in that way, we start to be constructive. We start to better each other and help ourselves live in this world in a better way. We improve ourselves. We're able to find meaning in life by being helpful to each other. That's what really matters to me, the relationships that we have with each other and how constructive those relationships are. And being kind to each other is a way to foster that constructiveness. That's kind of the takeaway that I got from this book. It's a little small, tiny little book. It's a speech. It's like a short speech for graduation speech. Is this like a philosophical manifesto on kindness? No. But it's a cute little book with a lot of meaning in it. It really is. I encourage you to check it out. Just, if you see it, check it out. Again, this Congratulations, by the Way, Some Thoughts on Kindness by George Saunders. Anyway, this is The Black Ponderer. I'm Neil Trotter. Thanks for watching. Tune in next time for more philosophical thought.